A cold wind howled across the snow-covered mountains. A man, wounded and missing an arm, was cornered. His pursuers closed in, questioning him about the location of an ancient relic. He scoffed at their demands, questioning if they would reveal such information if their positions were reversed. Annoyed by his stubbornness, the pursuers contacted their main squad, reporting that they had captured the Northern Phantom and confirming their coordinates. The injured man, known as the Northern Phantom, wondered why they were so persistent, even after severing his arm. His enemies had been relentlessly pursuing him for days, all because he had stolen the relic the Emperor sought. They decided to have some fun with him before their main squad arrived, as payback for the hardships he had caused them. They decided to flip a coin to see who would go first, and the winner, determined by a heads result, eagerly stepped forward. The Northern Phantom, whose real name was Zeke, gritted his wound, refusing to let his life end without a fight. He was the first failed awakener of the Draker household, born into the great Dragonslayer lineage but unable to use aura. This made him a failure as a knight, leading to his being treated as trash and cast out. He had done everything he could to survive and become stronger. He recalled someone's words about the futility of pursuing only strength, but he dismissed them as utter nonsense. The winner of the coin toss was eager to begin. Zeke knew such idealistic words were only spoken by the strong. The weak were trampled upon, and their belongings stolen. That was the harsh truth of this world. He trudged through the snow, knowing he couldn't escape. To their astonishment, Zeke reattached his severed arm. Despite this, his pursuers remained confident, believing that decapitation would still kill him. A flurry of blades attacked Zeke from all sides. Wounded and surrounded by his enemies' dead bodies, he coughed up blood. He realized his death was imminent. Though he hadn't achieved his revenge, he had managed to steal the relic from the Emperor. Holding the glowing, dragon-shaped artifact, he thought of Alicia. The artifact suddenly pulsed with light, and a message appeared, stating that his strong will could awaken an ancient power. It further explained that the soul of an elder dragon was engraved upon the will of the one who persists. An urgent measure was activated, and a voice asked for Zeke Draker's agreement. Dismissing it as a hallucination, Zeke nonetheless agreed, and the Awakener's agreement was confirmed. An irreversible, promised power was being activated, and a countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Zeke suddenly found himself in a younger body. He realized he had somehow traveled back in time. Though he still vividly remembered the sensation of a sword piercing his stomach, he found himself lying on a bed in a familiar place. The cradle, the training institution of the Draker household. The Draker household was one of the three great transcendent households, founded by the descendants of Tariq Draker, the hero who had slain the evil dragon Bahamut 1,000 years ago. All Draker descendants possessed the blessing of aura and could easily awaken their high-level aura to become knights, except for Zeke. A notification sound startled him. He looked around, wondering if he had misheard it. But then, more notifications appeared, confirming the alignment of his soul and the merging with the Elder Dragon's will. He had obtained partial authority over a system and was greeted by name. A status window was activated. Confused, Zeke interacted with the holographic interface, revealing his status as a low-rank administrator. His class was Healer Rare, and his title was the one who received the blessing of the ancient dragon. The window listed his class skills, including healing, composed mind, vigor recovery, and heightened senses. It also displayed individual skills like precise stab, slash, and critical strike, along with a draconian skill that was currently locked. Zeke navigated the system, learning about class skills and the ancient practice of categorizing oneself into classes based on abilities. He remembered his master's harsh training after he had awakened as a healer in his past life. According to the status window, he was already a healer, and he decided to test its accuracy. In his previous life, he had become a healer in his 20s after unlocking the Ether Hall. Focusing his mind, he felt a surge of energy, confirming that his Ether Hall was already unlocked. He realized that he had returned to the past with his skills and memories intact, giving him a significant advantage. To make the most of this opportunity, he needed to assess his current resources. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Flustered, Zeke struggled to close the status window, questioned Zeke's lack of preparation for an important event. It was Decker, his exclusive servant. Relieved that Decker couldn't see it. Decker, a figure he had feared in his youth. Zeke's nervousness vanished instantly. As the composed mind skill automatically activated, Decker pressed the issue, mentioning the evaluation test, Pancration. All Drakers, starting at the age of 7, underwent a rigorous training program known as the Cradle. For 5 years, they focused on basic training. The instructors evaluated the students each year through competitions of swordsmanship and Pancration, a no-rules combat form. While instructors typically chose the opponents, students could challenge each other if both parties consented. Due to the lack of rules, injuries and even deaths were not uncommon. Despite the brutality, this competition determined the students' placement within the academy. The children were forced to fight with everything they had. The day of Pancration had arrived. An instructor addressed the students, informing them that this was the final part of the evaluation. Head instructor Panmark, a stern-looking man, declared that they would begin immediately and ordered the students to prepare themselves. The students responded with a resounding "Yes, sir." Among the students, whispers of Zeke's name could be heard. Some pitied him, wondering how he was even in the direct bloodline, while others mocked him for returning after the humiliation he had suffered the previous year. Zeke, however, ignored their comments, knowing he could hear them all. A student named Aaron was called to the arena, and he confidently strode forward. He effortlessly defeated his opponent, Gata, with a single strike. Gata had failed to assume a proper defensive position. Aaron delivered a powerful kick to his opponent's face. The fight was over, and Aaron was declared the winner. Zeke watched the fight, unimpressed, thinking that he used to be afraid of such opponents when he was younger. The crowd looked on. Aaron was declared the winner. Next, Zeke was called to the arena alongside another student named Leon. Zeke's opponent was Leon. Leon, smirking, taunted Zeke, asking him to beg for his life. He had been Zeke's opponent every year. There were rumors that Leon pulled strings behind the scenes, using his household's influence to get ahead. Leon was Zeke's cousin. In Zeke's past life, the 4 siblings of the direct bloodline never had the chance to meet. However, there were more than a dozen cousins who were more than willing to bully him. One of the cousins acknowledged Zeke's bravery for returning after his previous defeat. He approached him. Leon smugly questioned if Zeke had learned his lesson, calling him inferior. Zeke activated his composed mind skill, silencing Leon's insults. He warned Leon not to be nice if he called him that again. Leon grabbed Zeke by the hair, insulting him further. Zeke activated his critical strike skill, causing Leon to reel back in pain, clutching his face. Zeke had intended to knock him out, but the skill activated unexpectedly. He realized he still needed to learn to control his abilities. The head instructor questioned Zeke's actions, as he had attacked before the start of the match. Zeke retorted that the one who struck first had the advantage. He grinned. Leon was stunned. He was shocked by Zeke's sudden change in demeanor. Leon was confused. Leon, recovering from the initial shock, ordered Zeke to begin the fight. He told him to die. Zeke charged forward, ready to attack. They clashed in the arena. Leon was surprised by the intensity of Zeke's attacks. Zeke's punches didn't hurt at all. He realized that if he kept his guard up, Zeke was no threat. Zeke countered with a left hook, a move that Leon found too obvious. Leon attempted to counter, aiming for Zeke's side. He cursed at him. However, Zeke dodged the attack with unexpected agility, leaving Leon dumbfounded. Leon was shocked. The head instructor remarked that it wasn't enough. Leon couldn't believe that this was the combat sense of a 12-year-old. Just as Leon dodged Zeke's counter and attempted to take him down, Zeke swiftly punched Leon's chin, breaking free from his grasp. Despite his counter failing, Zeke remained composed. The head instructor wondered if this was the same Zeke Draker he knew. Leon, frustrated and in pain, realized he couldn't do anything to Zeke. He decided to create distance between them, questioning how Zeke had become so strong despite his small stature. Leon attempted to land a kick, but Zeke managed to control his strength, grabbing Leon's leg and throwing him off balance. Zeke activated his heightened senses skill, a familiar feeling washing over him. He felt in control of his ether. He declared that he would end the fight, launching a flurry of attacks towards Leon. They moved across the arena. Zeke activated his precise stab skill, targeting Leon's weak points. Leon pleaded for Zeke to stop, but Zeke continued his assault, determined to teach him a lesson. Leon was terrified. The other students watched in shock. Zeke warned Leon not to mess with him again. After the fight, Zeke felt his head clear, as if a fog had lifted. He could now recognize the people watching him. He warned them not to look at him and to come down if they had something to say. Zeke warned the onlookers that if they had something to say, they should come down and face him. A student named Jaken Vardek, another one of Zeke's cousins, approached him, commenting that he had something to say, just as Zeke had suggested. Zeke looked at him. Zeke found fighting him alone too boring, so he instructed Liam Stone, Jaken's servant, to join him. Zeke considered this a fair fight. Jaken angrily accused Zeke of insulting him. He declared that he would beat Zeke to death. The head instructor gave them the go-ahead, and Zeke found it interesting to see Liam again. He had a determined look on his face. In his past life, Liam had joined the Cradle and the Academy as Jaken's servant. However, being a distant relative, Liam had been left behind in his education. He begged to join the higher education of the Academy, Valhalla, but ended up joining a small knight order called Baranon. After Baranon fell, he became a mercenary, eventually becoming known as the Mercenary King due to his strength and leadership. He and the Northerners later faced Liam as a foe during the Continental Wars. Zeke knew it could be different this time. The fight began, and Jaken immediately attacked Zeke. Zeke taunted him, telling them to come at him together. He was ready. Jaken, however, refused to play along with Zeke's cheap tricks. He launched a powerful kick towards Zeke, who managed to block the attack, though it still caused him pain. He stood firm. Zeke reminded Jaken to look properly before kicking. He landed a blow on Jaken's leg. Zeke charged at Jaken, telling him he was looking away, and landed a powerful punch. Jaken blocked the attack, but Zeke taunted him for being too scared. Zeke executed a feint, tricking Jaken, and followed up with a powerful kick. Jaken was sent flying, coughing up blood. Zeke declared that they weren't enough, prompting Liam to finally join the fight. He attacked Zeke. Zeke recognized Liam's strength, noting that he was also 12, just like them. He managed to grab Liam's arm, knowing he couldn't let Liam attack him first. Zeke attempted to take the lead, activating his slash skill. It launched a barrage of attacks, interfering with the enemy's sight. The other students were shocked by the display, never having seen anything like it before. They were in awe of his power. They wondered how Zeke, who practiced a northern fist-fighting technique in a land dominated by swords, could be so powerful. Zeke was frustrated that his body was still weak from his youth, making him tire easily. He realized that despite Liam's monstrous physique, he was taking no counterattacks and simply blocking. He was more aggressive during his time as the Mercenary King. Zeke's body was reaching its limit. He decided to test his body's strength, determined to take them down through their guard. He continued his assault, but Liam managed to dodge his attack. Liam taunted Zeke, saying he couldn't even see ether with his eyes, calling the crowd insane. Liam grabbed Zeke's arm and began to attack. He landed a blow to Liam's face. Zeke managed to grab Liam's hand, activating his heightened senses skill. He launched a flurry of attacks, but Liam held him in a chokehold. Zeke struggled to break free. He landed a final blow, telling him it was over. The fight continued. The crowd was stunned. The head instructor was shocked. Zeke managed to land a final blow. Liam fell to the ground, defeated. A woman smugly declared that he expected as much from Zeke and challenged him, promising to take him down. Decker approached Zeke, expressing concern about the injuries he had sustained during Pancration. Zeke reassured him that he was fine. Decker offered to check Zeke's pulse, wanting to see if he had awakened his aura. Zeke agreed. Decker placed his hand on Zeke's, a blue aura surrounding his hand. He looked at Zeke. Decker was thorough in his examination, checking his entire body. Imbuing someone with aura was difficult, leading Zeke to believe that Decker had to be a blue knight to control it so precisely. He learned that not all knights were the same. They were classified according to their martial prowess and aura manipulation proficiency. A white swordsman was a novice level, which most children were before the blessing rite. A yellow swordsman was someone who had awakened their aura and opened their dantian, a level all trainees of the cradle became after the blessing rite. A purple knight could reinforce their sword with aura, while a blue knight could manifest an aura blade. The realm of those who had transcended their limits, like the mercenary King Liam, was known as the Red Knight. There was also the Black Knight, but they were very few in the entire continent. Zeke wondered how someone skilled enough to be a commander ended up acting as his babysitter. Despite Decker's abilities, he couldn't detect Zeke's ether, a power that only 2 people in the entire world could use. Decker questioned why he was hiding something from him. He remained silent. He pretended to joke around. Zeke told Decker that his question was wrong and that he should be asking why he had only changed now. He declared that many more things would change from now on. Zeke stated that things were just going to their rightful places and that all Decker needed to do was follow him. Decker agreed. He informed Zeke that he had prepared the training room he had asked for and left. Zeke told him he could rest. Zeke reflected on who might have ordered Decker to keep an eye on him, suspecting it was one of his siblings rather than someone from his mother's side. He entered his personal training room, marveling at the equipment. He decided to check out the system, or whatever it was called, opening the low-rank administrator status window. His slash skill had become proficient, and he wondered if it was because he used the skill more. He also reflected on how the skill was naturally activated based on his actions. He pondered the difference between a skill and a class skill, noting that they were similarly activated. He then noticed his draconian skill, which was currently unavailable and required 10 points to unlock. He saw that his current karma points were 0. He learned that he could earn karma points by killing monsters, which were abundant in dungeons, but he needed to be at least a purple knight to enter. Zeke was curious as to why he had regressed to the past and what this system was, suspecting it had something to do with the ancient relic. However, he had little information. He decided to use the sword, thinking that he would use it as long as it could help him become stronger, whether it was the system or a Draker. He recalled that there were 2 known powers in the world, the aura of the knights and the mana of the mages. He was unable to awaken either, but his master taught him many things, including healing and the Ether Hall. Through the Ether Hall, he was able to handle the energy of nature, ether. He and his master were the only ether users in the world. After 2 hours of training, Zeke felt like he was going to collapse. He activated his class skills, healing and vigor recovery. He gripped his sword. Healing was a very rare skill that he didn't even know existed until he met his master. If he were to use it in front of people, they would treat him as an irregular, which was why he was unable to use it during his fight against Liam. He had to hurry to heal himself as soon as he got back to his room. Now that he was recovered, he decided to keep going. It was already dinner time. Zeke found Decker waiting for him. A week later, in the Cradle cafeteria, people were discussing how Zeke had changed. They hoped he would humble the stronger guys. The food was lavish. Raina Turnun was eating meat. Owen Zimmons told her to eat up for energy for the swordsmanship duel. Leon Conrad, still bruised from his fight with Zeke, angrily slammed his fist on the table, retorting that Owen was just being nice because of his inferiority complex. He looked at Leon. Owen questioned what Leon would do now. Decker commented that Pancration was savage but impressive, though he doubted Zeke's abilities in swordsmanship. He wondered what Zeke would do when he could barely hold up a sword, reminding everyone that Zeke had to get a customized sword because the basic ones were too heavy for him. Leon dismissed his loss to Zeke as luck, angering Raina. They continued to argue, with Raina telling them they had no right to be knights of the Draker household if they believed that. The next event was a sword duel, where, unlike Pancration, real swords were used. This was often the cause of most incidents within the cradle, and where the difference between the cadet skills was most glaringly shown. A month after the current final exams, the blessing rite would commence, the event where the Drakers awakened their aura. The head instructor called Zeke forward. Zeke confidently approached, carrying a large sword. The other students whispered amongst themselves, wondering about the size of the sword. Zeke looked at his opponent. Reina Turin stepped forward, and they both stood in the arena. Reina chose Zeke as her opponent. Zeke found it interesting and accepted her challenge. The other students were surprised by how easily Zeke lifted the claymore. As Zeke faced Reina, she could tell that this wasn't the Zeke he knew, the one who could barely hold a sword properly. She wondered if Zeke had grown larger or if it was his aura. She couldn't get intimidated before the duel began. She accepted with confidence like she always did. Reina Turin, also known as the Lightning Knight, made a name for herself during the Continental Wars. She was one of the greatest of the next generation of Drakers and had awakened her aura even before she went through the blessing rite. She hadn't used her aura in the cradle, saying she wanted to improve her fundamentals. The duel began, and Reina immediately took the offensive. They exchanged blows, with Reina showing impressive skill. She unleashed a powerful strike, forcing Zeke to take an extremely low stance to evade. She managed to close the gap in one go. Zeke found her better than he expected, but he also saw gaps in her defense. However, no matter how quickly he tried to take advantage of them, her sword always met his, as if she were applauding him for his attempts. And, right after, another gap would open up. It was almost like a training duel meant for teaching him. While her stance was narrow, he could sense gaps. No matter how quickly he tried to take advantage of them, her sword always met his. After another gap opened up, it was almost like a training duel. It felt like a lesson. Zeke landed a powerful blow, sending Reina to the ground. She panted heavily, surprising Zeke, who realized that this was how the Lightning Knight fought when she was in the cradle. Her swordsmanship was honest and focused on fundamentals, which was holding her back. Zeke decided to help her break out of her shell, taking a low stance. He intended to close the gap in one go, knowing that his speed was nothing to scoff at. He charged forward, his sword clashing with hers. Despite the distance between them, Reina was able to react to his moves. Zeke's sword shattered the ground beneath her, but Reina managed to evade his attack. However, he anticipated her movements, catching her off guard. He struck her, but she managed to block the blow. They continued their duel, with Zeke pressing her attack. Reina realized that she was finished. Her sword aimed at his heart. Zeke's sword fell to the ground, seemingly defeated. The crowd declared Zeke's loss, noting that Reina didn't use her aura as usual. The head instructor noted that the cadets didn't notice, but as Zeke's attack closed in on Reina, she used the faintest amount of aura, barely noticeable. Reina, who had promised to never use aura until she got into the academy, had broken her promise. Zeke forced her hand. Zeke launched a surprise attack, stating that the fight wasn't over. Reina was caught off guard, and Zeke managed to land a blow. He stood victorious. The crowd was in an uproar, declaring that a knight abandoning his sword meant defeat. They continued to berate him. Zeke asked Reina if she wanted to continue, but she refused, admitting that she had let her guard down and that it was her loss. If he wasn't barehanded and had a dagger, it would have been different. She was frustrated. She admitted defeat. The crowd was in shock. Zeke Draker, who was called human scum just a few days ago, had achieved victory against one of the most talented children among the famed houses, Reina Turin. The once grand castle stood in ruins, consumed by flames, a grim testament to the brutality of the conflict. Amidst the chaos and bloodshed, two figures remained relatively undisturbed within the burning building. Abel, calmly sipping tea, is questioned by a surprised William about his composure amidst the destruction, revealing a stark contrast in their personalities. A letter arrives. William's seriousness is met with Abel's nonchalance, mentioning Zeke's victory over Reina, piquing Abel's interest. He announces that they have until the next full moon before the blessing rite, suggesting this is the perfect time to visit the family. Expresses his curiosity about the awakening of his youngest brother. He is also interested in knowing what kind of awakening his youngest brother will go through. Despite the shock caused by Zeke's victory in the cradle, he maintains his focus and returns to training. A month later, on the day of the blessing rite, Zeke reflects on his past life, puzzled by how he became a red knight with his current body. He accesses the system, noting that his skill mastery resets once it surpasses the expert level. His swift step skill also increased. His servant, Decker, informs him they're leaving for the main estate in 2 hours, prompting Zeke to prepare. The Draker family's main estate. It is located within the Duchy of Troy, but the main residence is located at the Four Seasons Fortress in Midland. As they arrive, is also known as the Dragon's Nest Lair. Zeke observes the crowd, recognizing many famous faces from the Continental newsletter and realizing his family likely sent informants to monitor him. He anticipates being ignored if he fails the awakening. The arrival of Abel Draker, the second son of the Draker family. He is known as the Lion Blade or the Butchering Knight, and his presence is unexpected. Zeke wonders if his actions have altered the future, seeing this as a potential opportunity. The blessing rite commences, and Aaron is the first to participate. He steps forward, placing his hand into the water, and successfully awakens his aura, the energy flowing through him. This rite, performed at the age of 12 upon graduation from the cradle, allows Draker family members to awaken their sealed aura. This process is notably faster than ordinary knights, who awaken after 20. Some rare individuals also awaken a trait called mana inhibition, causing the mana lamps to flicker red, indicating a pure blood awakening. These individuals require special family-made gloves to live normal lives due to their unique condition. This proves their pure blood descent, granting them the Draker name and significant family support. The crowd buzzes with anticipation as Zeke's turn approaches, with many expecting him to undergo a pure blood awakening due to his victory over Reyna. Zeke steps forward, reflecting on his past failures at this very statue. He recalls the blessing rite being the only thing that pushed him through the cradle, only to receive a shameful title. However, he is now different, possessing the ability to heal and manipulate ether, and having stood up for himself. He expresses his will. He places his hand on the bronze statue, but the process stops abruptly. The liquid in the vessel starts to move strangely. More liquid starts to appear. The process stops, and the statue head turns. A wave of disappointment washes over the crowd, as it becomes apparent that Zeke has failed to awaken. Murmurs spread about the cursed blood of the family head, with some speculating that Zeke used trickery to defeat Reyna. Despite the setback, a delayed message from the system appears, indicating missing information during class identification. The system inputs the missing data, identifying Zeke's talent as healer, a rare class. The red lights flicker, signifying a pure blood awakening, and the ancient dragon's blessing, sealed within his soul, activates. His talents combine, creating a new unique class, Immortal. A golden light emanates from the statue, leaving onlookers confused and questioning whether it is a pure blood awakening. Zeke, observing the situation, understands their doubts, but knows it will work against him if he speaks up. Some speculate that the sword statue might be broken, but the mana lamp is functioning correctly. Abel claps, inquiring about the commotion with a smile. He suggests that they celebrate having 2 pure blood awakenings in one batch, prompting agreement from the crowd. Abel then orders someone to fetch a glove for the newest member of the family. Zeke puts on the glove, which feels quite hefty. The ceremony continues, with Abel smiling subtly. Zeke recognizes Abel's obvious intentions, but is not thrilled about taking Abel's help, finding the entire situation unpleasant. The head of the household announces the end of the blessing rite and invites everyone to a celebratory party. Zeke, however, has no interest in the party and heads towards a training room instead. He is interrupted by Abel, who approaches him. Abel congratulates Zeke on his pure blood awakening and offers a handshake. Zeke hesitates, knowing that refusing would show hostility. He reluctantly accepts the handshake, though he despises the idea. Abel departs, leaving Zeke feeling uneasy. Others discuss the occurrence of 2 pure blood awakenings, including Zeke's, which they initially thought had failed. They wonder where he is now. Zeke, having changed into comfortable clothes, reflects on the events, feeling suffocated. He wonders how he is fine despite the mana inhibition, realizing that purebloods require the house's gloves. He takes off the glove, expecting problems, but notices none. He accesses his status window, finding a new skill called Mana Reflection, which creates a distortion field to nullify nearby mana. He realizes it's not a passive skill, which is why the mana lamps were unaffected. He notes that he was a rare healer before the rite, but is now a unique immortal. He further reflects on his abilities, noting that all graduates had regular awakenings with blue aura, while Reina had a red, pure blood awakening. His own awakening was initially red but turned gold. The system confirms it lost critical information, which, when inputted, caused the bronze statue to emit a red light. The bronze statue reacts differently based on class, with red for rare and gold for unique. This concept is no longer used, except to check for awakenings, and the red light was mistaken for a pure blood awakening sign. Zeke realizes that no family head ever noticed this, and he now has access to draconian skills, which he got back after the events. He decides to use his karma points to unlock these skills, gaining access to Dragon Eyes and Might of the Dragon. He ponders the usefulness of the Devour skill, which costs 50 points and allows the user to eat and digest a lot. He opts for the more reliable skills, finding Might of the Dragon too dangerous to use at the moment. He activates Dragon Eyes, which provides detailed information about objects but doesn't change much else. He sees a fiery aura around his eye and observes the statue in the garden, which appears as if it is right in front of him. He requests more information about a detected object, learning about the materials and origins of various items in the room. Overwhelmed by the skill's effects, Zeke feels his body weakening. He activates his class skills, Healing Factor, and Vigor Recovery to counteract the strain. He realizes his skills have become passive abilities with increased levels. While healing is powerful, it has limitations, but Healing Factor is infinite. He tests it by cutting himself, and the wound heals instantly. He decides to finish his training quickly, cutting it short from 5 years to 2. The scene opens with a view of Draker Academy, the greatest knight academy on the continent, located in the Duchy of Troy. The academy is bustling with activity as the new semester begins. Students are socializing, and the higher-ranked students are noted for their mature demeanor and rigorous training. Among them, Zeke observes that they are still children from great families, who seem to have already established their authority, each represented by their respective crests. The 3 most influential families supporting the Draker family are introduced: Turin of Strength, Zimmons of Wisdom, and Vardek of Gold. Zeke reflects on the state of these families, finding it none of his business. He arrives at the high-class dormitory, Platinum Mansion, which includes a training hall, library, and other facilities. It is only open to the highest-ranked students, and even those from the cradle can't enter easily. Pureblood Awakeners are given the special privilege of being a floor master, with an entire floor to themselves. Zeke is welcomed as Sir Draker and informed that they have been awaiting his arrival. He is then escorted to his assigned floor, where he is greeted by several attendants. Zeke is surprised by the lavish treatment, even as a pureblood. Decker is waiting for him in his room, and Zeke inquires about the new gloves he received. The gloves, which are on a different level from temporary ones, are a welcome change for Zeke. He asks Decker about getting a new sword, which Decker approves of, suggesting they find a decent craftsman. Decker explains that the Duchy of Troy is near the Giants Mountains, a region abundant in high-quality iron and skilled craftsmen. He suggests that the first weapon of an academy alumni is always a Trojan, and he has someone in mind for the task. Zeke agrees, asking Decker to set up an appointment. He mentions a name, Galleon Halberd, whom he will contact. He also reminds Zeke to review the documents for the upcoming classes. Zeke, now alone in his room, reflects on the benefits of the Platinum Floor's isolation, which will allow him to develop his draconian skills more freely. He is interrupted by a knock on the door, and a servant announces that Floor Master Reina has sent a dinner invitation. Intrigued, Zeke agrees to go. As he walks through the building, he finds the situation amusing. Reina greets him, apologizing for her family's behavior. Zeke expresses his thanks for the meal, and they proceed to the dining area. Reina, known as the Lightning Knight, is observed to be fully utilizing her lower abdomen to control her aura, a fact that has caught the attention of the current Purple Knight. Zeke wonders why her swordsmanship is stuck in a rut, considering it a waste of her potential. During the meal, Zeke compliments the food, and Reina states her intention to get down to business. She asks Zeke to accept the Turin family's support, reminding him that they are both pure-blood awakeners. She explains that while they receive many privileges, they lack support for growth. Support families are necessary due to the centuries of practical experience accumulated in the academy. Even Abel Draker, a pureblood and the youngest to attain the title of White Knight and the current Black Knight, receives support from the Simmons family. Reina reveals that while the patriarch of the Turin family hasn't explained why, Zeke is not receiving support from his maternal family. She reiterates her request for him to accept the Turin family's support, but Zeke firmly refuses. Making Reina confused, he states that he doesn't need more than what he already receives as a pure-blood awakener. He offers a final piece of advice as a parting gesture, telling her that her sword has too much strength behind it, suggesting she is too conscious of others. He advises her to focus on fluidity and flexibility, to deflect attacks rather than confront them directly, and to deliver a single delicate strike. This, he believes, will allow her to grow stronger. After the meal, Reina reflects on her actions, stating that she is merely following her family's tradition as the herald of strength. She realizes that she had been too focused on living up to the Turin name, which unintentionally affected her swordsmanship. She acknowledges that Zeke saw through her, unlike others who only praised her as a genius without offering real advice. She wonders about Zeke's true identity and intentions. Zeke reflects on his changed circumstances, noting how his class skills now have insane performance, including infinite stamina, which offsets any fatigue. He used to think of this place as hell in his past life, but now, as a pure-blood awakener, he sees it as heaven. He acknowledges that while money and power aren't everything, there's nothing quite like this. He walks confidently through the academy grounds. Other students watch him pass, and some recognize him as Zeke Draker. Owen approaches him, revealing that he is also part of the special class. Owen, the third son of the Simmons family, one of the three great families, used to use schemes to bully Zeke while cunningly maintaining his own image. Owen mentions a dinner invitation from the previous night, questioning why Zeke is acting friendly now. Zeke feigns ignorance about the invitation, claiming he didn't see it on his desk. Owen presses him on why he didn't reply, calling him funny. Zeke retorts by asking why he has to reply to every single invitation. He confidently steps forward, prompting Owen's subordinate to call Zeke rude despite the young master's kindness. Zeke, unfazed, questions the subordinate's identity, who introduces himself as Durbin Roswell, also known as Durbin the Mighty. Zeke mocks his lack of a pseudonym, easily defeating him with a swift kick. He then effortlessly counters Durbin's punch, sending him flying with another powerful blow. Durbin coughs up blood, and Zeke kicks him again, sending him crashing to the ground. He asks who's next, and Owen tells his other subordinate to hurry up and pick, stepping forward himself. Owen remarks that Zeke likes to bask in his own glory, to which Zeke responds with disdain. The narrative explains that Draker Academy is split into two classes: the normal class for those lacking talent, who must follow a strict regimen, and the special class for elites, who can choose their subjects freely. Zeke reflects on this, noting that most special class members are just alumni of the cradle. A special guest arrives to encourage the freshmen, a hero who was the commander-in-chief during the Eastern Empire War 20 years ago. He was also the hero who stopped the Empire's invasion with their resourcefulness alone, revealed to be Dean Howard Draker. He is worshipped as a war hero and a tactical genius, but the truth is he leaked information for his own survival, throwing the enemy into chaos. Zeke sees him as a rat and a traitor, holding him responsible for his past hardships. He recalls being caught by slave traders and sold to the Southern Cartel, vowing to make Howard pay. The dean gives a speech, encouraging the students to take his words to heart. They head to the special class indoor arena, where Zeke is surprised that even they have to learn the basics of dragon slaying. He remembers spending 2 years learning it in his past life because he couldn't use aura, mastering in 3 months what would take others 2 years. The instructor is introduced, Rose Knight Andre Draker. Students wonder who he is, noting his youth and the formal Draker uniform. They identify him as Andre, the Rose Knight, who, despite not being a pure-blood awakener, graduated from Valhalla as valedictorian and is considered a once-in-a-century genius. Zeke remarks on the high level of the special classes teachers, also noting Andre's famous inflexible personality. Andre silences the students and begins the class. He instructs everyone to draw their swords. Owen's eyes glow red, and he notices Zeke's unusual sword. Zeke shows off his large sword, stating it's the one he's using. Andre calls him to the arena, emphasizing the importance of picking a sword that suits one's body. Zeke admits he knew this would happen and made sure to stand out, claiming he could beat Andre with his current sword. He decides it's faster to show his skills, activating the indomitable mental defense skill. Andre agrees, telling Zeke that if his blade touches him, he will be exempted from punishment for rudeness and from the dragon-slaying basics class. A red aura surrounds Andre, as he warns Zeke of the consequences. Zeke, knowing it would be dangerous to garner too much attention, he plans to graze Andre's clothes, and Zeke remembers his large sword, which Andre easily blocks, then counters with a red-tinged strike. Zeke, anticipating a challenge from the Blue Knight, observes Andre's aura manipulation. The students are impressed by Andre's skill, noting that he hasn't grazed his clothes for 30 minutes. Zeke continues his assault, and his relentless attacks draw questions about his stamina, especially since he's suppressing his aura. Andre, however, is losing, finding the existence of pure bloods unfair. Zeke's poor stamina and suppressed mana aren't helping him, as the Draker's aura cultivation method requires constant activation, even during daily tasks. Zeke realizes that Andre is holding his breath, which, combined with his unconventional swordsmanship, further depletes his stamina. Despite this, Zeke knows losing doesn't feel right, and there's no helping it. He decides to force Andre to use his aura, understanding that creating easily handled situations is useless. He has to create an extreme situation that will make Andre unconsciously use his aura. Zeke unleashes a powerful attack, utilizing his swift steps skill, followed by a precise stab. He uses swift steps again, combined with critical strike, to land a decisive blow. Andre focuses his gaze, using a spinning attack. He executes the first verse of the dragon-slaying arts, Sky Slice, a powerful technique. Despite coming from a Blue Knight, the Andre's attack force is remarkable. The attack connects, and the onlooking students are shocked. Zeke's sword is damaged, but he activates his healing factor skill, collapsing afterward. Andre is also thrown back, his sword damaged. He commends Zeke, as Andre declares that does not need to attend class anymore. He asks if anyone else wishes to be exempt. The other students are speechless, but there is no response. He announces that the cadets will witness a true Draker's swordsmanship, implying that the duel is not over. Zeke wakes up in the infirmary, pleased with his performance, acknowledging his abilities despite not grazing his clothes. He reflects on the outcome. He got disciplined, and he obtained free time, considering it a win-win situation. He analyzes Andre's last attack, the first verse of the dragon-slaying arts, Sky Slice, noting its incredible force despite coming from a Blue Knight. Zeke acknowledges that he can still beat a Blue Knight, but it isn't enough to live freely. He resolves to gain unrestrainable power, a power that won't let him submit to anyone. A mysterious figure appears, identifying Zeke as Arthur's youngest son. Zeke is startled, as the figure notes his arrogant eyes, similar to Arthur's. The figure drinks from a bottle, ignoring Zeke about his identity and his ability to instantly heal Zeke's internal wound. Zeke tries to use indomitable mental defense, but the mysterious figure warns him not to fall for it, as no one at the academy would know of healing. He questions Zeke's pretense, attacking him. Zeke barely dodges, realizing the attacker is an assassin. The assassin, impressed by Zeke's tricks, activates multiple skills including swift steps, precise stab, and critical strike. He intends to kill him if he can't defeat him, but the figure adapts quickly, leaving the assassin to question his identity. Zeke stood in the infirmary, the door creaking open to reveal an intruder. He recognized the man as a mercenary. The mercenary wondered about Zeke's identity. Zeke was suspicious, pondering if the mercenary knew something about his past life. The mercenary, meanwhile, observed Zeke had abandoned his sword and retreated during their earlier encounter. He deduced that Zeke might be better suited as a mercenary rather than a knight. The realization dawned on Zeke. That was what the mercenary meant. The mercenary confirmed his suspicion, stating he felt a familiarity with Zeke, reminiscent of his own master. He was certain of his assessment after their brief exchange. The mercenary explained there was a significant difference in their abilities. Zeke could have easily killed him if he wanted to. He guessed Zeke was at least a red knight. He questioned why someone so skilled was using a basic claymore from the cradle. The mercenary corrected himself, suggesting Zeke might be even stronger than a red knight. Zeke sensed someone approaching. It was Andre who had come to check on him. Zeke was surprised by Andre's presence, Andre introducing him as garden keeper Dexter. Zeke was stunned. Dexter asked Zeke how he knew where to find him. Dexter revealed he had seen Zeke at the training room earlier. He commented on Zeke's sharp wit. Andre instructed Zeke to return to his duties once he was treated. Zeke acknowledged the order. As Zeke was leaving, Dexter stopped him, inviting him to the Academy's western greenhouse, promising to teach him something useful. Andre watched, questioning what Dexter was up to. Zeke politely declined Dexter's offer. Dexter exclaimed about Zeke's defiant attitude, comparing it to his father, Arthur. Zeke wondered about Dexter's true identity, finding it hard to believe he was just a garden keeper. Zeke realized that if Dexter could so casually refer to the current patriarch as Arthur Draker, he must hold a high rank. He recalled that Dexter must be the person who had only taken one disciple, Andre, in his entire life, Duke Draker, the Gale Knight. He remembered that Duke Draker was one of the Black Knights, possessing enough power to challenge an entire kingdom single-handedly. Zeke also remembered the rumors of the Duke suddenly disappearing one day without a word. He now understood why Andre was at the Academy. It was because of the Duke. Zeke pondered the meaning of the title Duke, envisioning a man with unwavering tenacity. He recalled the rumor that the Duke achieved Black Knight status simply because he liked the color black, but dismissed it as unlikely. Zeke realized the Duke was showing a strong interest in him. He was uninterested in receiving superficial instruction based on mere curiosity. If he was going to learn anything from the Duke, it would be his secret move. The scene shifted to Draker Academy, where a professor, Fanon, was lecturing on magic theory. He asked the class a question, but was met with silence. He chuckled, commenting on their lack of response. He continued the lecture, explaining that attempting to form mana formulas without proper understanding could cause actual damage. Zeke raised his hand, admitting he didn't understand the mana transfer energy law mentioned earlier. The professor was taken aback and adjusted his glasses in surprise. Flustered, he apologized for his surprise, explaining it was the first time he had received a question. He proceeded to explain the concept of mana transfer. Zeke found the explanation easy to understand, impressed by the professor's teaching skills. His classmates seemed more interested in napping. As Zeke was about to leave, Professor Fanon called out to him. He hesitated, then invited Zeke to his research lab if he ever had any questions, explaining that he was an alumnus of the prestigious Delphoa Magic University. Zeke was surprised to learn the professor was from Delphoa, the origin nation of magic. He politely acknowledged the invitation. Zeke thought there was no harm in befriending a mage. He considered that mages, particularly those skilled in mathematics, tended to be flexible thinkers, making them better colleagues than rigid knights, and decided he might be a useful contact. Back in the academy grounds, Zeke noticed someone approaching. It was Dexter, who seemed less patient than expected. He asked Zeke why he hadn't come to the greenhouse. Dexter assumed Zeke understood his offer to teach him useful things. Zeke reiterated that he wasn't interested. Dexter was shocked by Zeke's refusal. Zeke explained he was busy with individual training. Dexter countered that personal training was essential, but then revealed that wasn't his real reason for seeking Zeke out. Dexter suddenly released a surge of aura. Zeke was caught off guard and knocked unconscious. He awoke in the western greenhouse. Zeke was annoyed that Dexter had resorted to knocking him out. Then, Dexter nonchalantly greeted Zeke. He accused Dexter of abducting him, which Dexter readily admitted. Dexter confessed his interest in him. He noted Dexter wasn't even bothering to hide his true intentions anymore, concluding that he must be quite impatient. He activated his swift steps skill and made a run for it. But Dexter easily caught up. He used his mana to defend himself, but Dexter effortlessly dodged the attack. Dexter continued to toy with Zeke. He explained he needed something to light a fire. He finally revealed his true question: how Zeke's internal wounds had healed so quickly. Zeke realized that was what had piqued Dexter's interest. Dexter challenged him to make him answer. Dexter suddenly vanished. Zeke looked around for him. Dexter suddenly reappeared behind Zeke, his sword poised to strike. Zeke managed to deflect the blow. He firmly grasped his sword and charged forward. Dexter asked what Zeke was doing. Zeke reminded Dexter that he had challenged him to make him answer. He proposed a bet. If he could even graze Dexter's clothing, Dexter would grant him one wish. Dexter countered that if Zeke gave up on the duel, he would have to tell Dexter everything he was hiding. Zeke continues his relentless assault on Dexter in the greenhouse, who wonders what the kid is made of, having already been fighting for 3 hours. He notes Zeke's stamina and endurance, realizing that his stamina and wounds are being endlessly recovered. Zeke activates his healing factor and infinite stamina skills, determined to keep going all day long, although he knows he can't beat the bet. He recalls the Might of the Dragon skill, deemed too dangerous to use, but considers it against a Black Knight. He decides to continue, and Dexter, noticing a change in his gaze, approves. Zeke uses swift steps, unleashing a flurry of attacks. Dexter acknowledges Zeke's speed, but is more impressed by his spite. He suggests using a bit of aura, activating the draconian skill, Might of the Dragon. He counters Zeke's attack, wondering if Zeke blocked his vision, but realizes it will be difficult for Zeke to find him too. Zeke activates Dragon Eyes, enabling him to see Dexter's movements. He manages to land a glancing blow, leaving footprints in his wake. Zeke recognizes this as the Duke's secret move, realizing that even a simple dash causes a gust, understanding why he's known as the Gale Knight. Dexter proposes they call it a draw, as he lands a heavy punch on Zeke, spitting blood, as the force broke his sword and propelled him towards wall despite his fatigue surpassing the acceptable limit. Back to Zeke's room. As he begins to regain consciousness, he reflects on his efforts, acknowledging that it was useless. Even using Dragon Eyes to strike him wasn't enough. However, he did get to see the Duke's secret move, the nonsensical high-speed movement arts used with his extremely trained body, which allowed Andre to rise to the position of Red Knight. Despite losing the opportunity to learn the secret move, Zeke considers it worthwhile. He recognizes the power of Might of the Dragon, a skill that would make even a Black Knight hesitate and cause lesser individuals to submit. Zeke receives a system notification, informing him that his Swift Steps skill has been upgraded to high-speed movement. His soul has developed due to his strong will, and his system functions are activated. He learns that he can activate the next function using karma points, and unlocks the mini-map, inventory, and elementary level quest book. He checks his current karma points and decides to activate the inventory function. He learns how to store and retrieve items, experimenting with his claymore, successfully storing it and retrieving it. He finds the inventory superior to subspace storage, as it was difficult to find a suitable storage object for his expensive artifact. He also learns that he can increase the inventory space using points. He views his status window, noting his unique class, Immortal, and title, the one who received the blessing of the ancient dragon. He reflects on the value of karma points, deciding to change his plans. A servant Decker informs Zeke of a message from Garden Keeper Dexter. Zeke receives a note from Dexter, inviting him to another challenge, and declaring their previous encounter a draw. The opportunity to learn the secret move still remains. Zeke is then summoned by a servant, who informs him that he has found the blacksmith Zeke mentioned. However, there's a problem. The blacksmith refuses to make an appointment, as he doesn't make weapons anymore. Noting that it has been a while, Zeke arrives at a workshop named Papnia's Breath. He enters, finding the interior filled with weapons and tools, and calls out to see if anyone is present. Who created the masterpiece Sword of Radiance Graham? He reflects on the master blacksmith Galleon Halberd, and was renowned for reading the souls of his clients to create weapons tailored to them. Zeke recalls that Galleon possessed the ability to replace ether with aura, making him the greatest blacksmith on the continent. Zeke encounters a drunken Galleon, known as the Blacksmith of the Soul, who rudely dismisses him. Galleon's behavior is stark contrast to his past reputation as a moody, yet not extreme, person. Zeke wonders what happened to change him. Zeke throws a bucket of water at Galleon, splashing him and causing him to fall. Zeke asks him if he's sober, and Galleon demands to know why he rejected his commission. Galleon, recognizing Zeke as a Draker, apologizes for his discourtesy, but reiterates his refusal to take commissions. Zeke realizes that even Galleon had a period of self-doubt, recalling that he was already a renowned blacksmith when they first met, and that Galleon never shared details about his past life. Zeke understands that he can't wait 10 years for Galleon to recover, as he's uncertain if Galleon can even make weapons again. Despite Galleon's apologies, Zeke guides him to the back, determined to get him back on the right path. Galleon apologizes for the cluttered state of his workshop, but Zeke reassures him, finding it charming. Zeke examines Galleon's failed creations, recognizing their quality despite being labeled as failures. He activates his Dragon Eye skill, noticing a problem with Galleon's brazier. He confronts Galleon about his smelting method, pointing out that he's mixed several metals to create a lighter material, but the durability is weak due to impurities not being properly eliminated during the heat treatment process. Galleon is impressed by Zeke's immediate recognition of his methods and the flaws in his work. Zeke asks Galleon to examine a blueprint, which is revealed to be Galleon's secret, a blueprint of a magic brazier that allows for precise temperature control through magic. Zeke suggests that Galleon's smelting method would work perfectly with this brazier, and Galleon is surprised that Zeke recognized it immediately. Galleon explains that the most important part, the mana energy law blueprint, is missing, and the Magic Tower's commission fee is 10,000 gold, an exorbitant amount. Zeke realizes it took Galleon 10 years to gather that much money, and he finds the price absurd. He proposes a deal. If Galleon makes him the brazier, he will create any commission for him, free of charge and without conditions, for as long as he lives. Zeke acknowledges the trickiness of the deal, as it would be difficult for even a pureblood to receive such support, but he's determined to not give up on Graham, the Sword of Radiance. He realizes Galleon's issue is regarding mana energy laws. Zeke confidently agrees to Galleon's terms, promising to ask a favor from a mage he knows. He then abruptly tells Galleon to stop drinking, leaving a grateful and emotional Galleon behind. Zeke contacts the mage and recalls his encounter with Fanon, who specializes in the design of mana energy laws. Thinking about the Draker Academy professorial research buildings and Fanon's research lab, he finds a location in an alley where he witnesses a group of students bullying another student. The victim apologizes to Leon Conrad, who decides to let him clean the ground as a reward. Zeke intervenes, causing Leon to leave angrily. Leon, angered by Zeke's interference and his unprecedented golden light reaction and status as a pure-blooded awakening that surpassed all others, vows to cut him down. Leon reflects on his own loss to Zeke, despite Zeke being a recessive who supposedly beat him by luck. He questions how that could be possible for a pure-blooded awakener. Zeke appears, asking Leon if he has found a replacement for him and offering a sinister smile. Zeke suggests they should plant their heads on the ground. Leon Conrad leads his group through the alley, berating Zeke for his arrogance since his pure-blood awakening. He wonders if Zeke really went through a pure-blood awakening. He orders a student to drop to the ground, and the student fearfully complies, feeling an intense pressure. Leon questions the pressure they're feeling, recalling how Zeke used to crawl between his legs just a few months ago, yet now he's scared of him. Leon angrily tells Zeke not to tell him what to do and orders his group to attack Zeke. Zeke warns them not to blame him for what's about to happen, effortlessly countering their attacks. Leon is surprised, and Zeke continues his assault, dispatching them with a series of swift moves. One of Leon's men is struck in the face as Zeke continues his relentless attack. Zeke slams them into a wall, then delivers a powerful kick. He continues to strike them, knocking them to the ground. Leon is stunned, unable to comprehend the situation. Zeke calmly states that there's no need to be scared, and that it will only hurt for a moment. And Leon fearfully tells him to stay away. Zeke questions Leon's decision to draw his sword outside of the training arena, warning him of the consequences. In a fit of rage, to face the murderous intent of Leon Conrad, who has unsheathed his sword outside of the holy training arena, declaring that he's a Draker and will retaliate in the name of honor. He challenges Leon to a duel, where the loser faces death. He tells Liam that all responsibility lies within themselves, and the opponent takes no responsibility for the outcome to follow, and makes Liam a witness. Zeke effortlessly counters Leon's attack and tells him he is sorry. Zeke agrees. Leon begs for his life, but Zeke ignores him. And Leon, despite his fear, taunts him. Remember his past life where he continues to plead to Leon, but Zeke mocks him. He slices off Leon's ear, taking it as payment, and causing Leon to scream in agony. Not just his ear. Zeke warns him that their next encounter will cost him his head. He warns him he will take his head off his body. He then steps on Leon's head, telling him that it is over. Liam intervenes, asking Zeke why he stopped and why he helped him. Zeke clarifies that he wasn't helping Liam, but himself, and leaves. He reflects on his encounter with Galleon, considering the possibility of acquiring a Golden Age relic to solve the Mana Stone problem. He arrives at the Academy Galleon Research Lab and presents the blueprint to Professor Fannin, who is hesitant at first. Fannin recognizes the complexity of the design, calling it unprecedented. Fannin offers two options: redesign the core, which would take at least a decade, or find an alternative material to avoid redesigning the core. This alternative material is a high-compression mana stone, a rare ancient artifact not producible with modern technology. Fannin explains that finding such a stone in ruins would be extremely difficult and costly, estimating a price of over 3,000 gold. Zeke, discouraged by the 15-year wait and the high cost, is determined to obtain Graham, the Sword of Radiance. He recalls the sword's reaction created with ether and healing, believing that its ability to utilize aura is superior to ether. He resolves to find a high-compression mana stone, impressed by the blueprint's efficient design. He decides to seek out a Golden Age relic, after realizing he had not thought of that before. He instructs Fannin to take care of the designs while he's gone, and jokingly saying it wouldn't take 15 years, promising to bring back the Mana Stone. A flashback reveals the Golden Age, a time when dragons ruled and humanity struggled to survive. The liberation was brought about by Terrican Draker, who defeated the evil dragon, granting humanity a century of peace. During this time, ancient relics were discovered in the dragon's lair, remnants of the age of the Hero King, the prime age of magic. Possessed technology surpassing modern standards. These relics, including a high-compression mana stone capable of sustaining the mana needs of an entire village. In the present, Zeke is at the Draker Academy Central Library, which is rarely used, despite being established by Terrican himself, where records of relics from the Golden Age are kept. He enters the Central Library records room. However, nobody has discovered these relics yet, nor are they even aware of them. He activates his Dragon Eyes skill, searching for clues. He notices a hidden compartment in the floor, marked by a hollow sound when tapped. Activating Soul of the Spirit, a skill he learned from his master that allows him to materialize ether and apply properties like cut. Using the skill comes with drawbacks, however, as it requires a large amount of ether to perform any action. He opens the compartment. He retrieves a torch and continues his search, noticing something unusual. He finds skeletons holding shovels and pickaxes, determining they were not created by a lich. He easily defeats the skeletons with critical strike, earning karma points in the process. He realizes he can earn points by killing monsters and sees an opportunity to farm for points. Zeke defeats more skeletons, finding it easy, and checks his status window, noting that he can unlock the minimap for 20 points. He purchases and activates the minimap, which is similar to a magic map. The map transforms from 2D to 3D, revealing a hidden storage room. He requests directions to the grave of the Dragonslayer storage room. Surprised by the existence of a storage room, the system provides him with the quickest route, leading him to a sealed door, which Zeke attempts to disarm. The door is protected by a security spell, but fails. He tries to communicate with the system, asking it to open the door. The system responds to his request, deactivating the security spell and informing him that it is responding to what he just said. It confirms that it is the administrator system, and Zeke realizes he can talk to it. Zeke asks the system why it forced him to regress, but it states it cannot answer that question. He asks who made the system, but receives the same response. He becomes frustrated that he's not getting answers to important questions and demands that the system open the door. The system confirms his request, and the grave of the Dragonslayer storage room is opened. Inside, Zeke discovers numerous treasure chests, which are known to contain valuable relics and treasures. He opens a chest, finding gold and jewelry, and takes some items, including one he intends to give to Fanon. He finally finds a high-compression mana stone and uses 1 karma point to expand his inventory by 4 slots. He gathers more items, deciding it's enough for the day, and leaves the storage room. As he exits, he senses an ominous feeling, and his hand is burned by the security spell, despite it supposedly being deactivated. The spell activates again, leaving Zeke to wonder what is happening as he was transported to another place. Zeke is thrown to unknown location. He looks around, confused, and asks the system where he is. The system informs him that he is in the home of the Dragonslayer. He notices coffins around him, a detail not mentioned in the newsletter. He checks the minimap, realizing this place is far from where he was previously and that there's no path connected to the home of the Dragonslayer, indicating it might be a hidden area. He spots a set of armor in a display case, identified by the system as Dragonslayer exclusive equipment. He approaches and touches the armor. He realizes that it is not armor from the Golden Age, finding a hole where a mana stone could be inserted. Remembering the high-compression mana stone he found, he retrieves it and inserts it into the armor. The equipment activates, glowing brightly. The armor begins to move on its own, and Zeke is startled. Suddenly, the system warns him of an overload, and the armor explodes. Fortunately, Zeke is unharmed. He wonders what features the armor had, given that it required such a large energy source. He decides to ask Fanon about it later and continues exploring. He finds all the other rooms empty and comes to a large room with a glass cube inside. Upon closer inspection, he sees a glowing heart within the cube. The system identifies it as the legacy of Terrakin Draker, specifically the heart of the cursed light dragon, Bahamut. Zeke realizes this explains the ominous feeling he had when he entered the storage room. Suddenly, his body reacts, and he feels a strange sensation. The system informs him that the heart of the cursed light dragon, Bahamut, is reacting to the administrator. A voice echoes in his mind. Zeke is determined to resist, speaking of killing and freedom, stating he will kill them all. He activates the indomitable mental defense skill, but struggles against the voice's influence. He questions why he would listen, and tries to regain control. He sees the heart within the cube, and is thrown back by a powerful force. An urgent quest appears. Terrakin Draker's test. Defeat the strong curse from Bahamut's heart. The reward is ownership of Terrakin's dying gift. Zeke is surprised and struggles against the curse. He attempts to activate indomitable mental defense again, but the skill fails. The voice intensifies, urging him to accept it and be free. Zeke resists, refusing to be controlled. The voice tells him that freedom is won. He struggles against the voice and wins against the light dragon's curse, completing the urgent quest. As a reward, he obtains ownership of Terrakin Draker's dying gift. However, his healing factor and infinite stamina skills fail, and he starts to absorb the heart of the cursed light dragon. A pure and dense source of mana flows into him, but he lacks the circles to accept it. The mana begins to destroy his body, and he realizes he needs to do something. He uses Spirit of the Soul to create an ether hole, covering the mana and sealing it. He manages to contain the mana, and the heart is gone. He realizes that the absorbed mana was from Bahamut, and a new mark appears on his chest. He wonders if this occurred when he sealed Bahamut's mana. The system informs him that he has absorbed the heart of the cursed light dragon, changing his body to a divine body. It also states that 95% of the power has been compressed and sealed, and that he has the right to open Terrakin Draker's secure library. Additionally, the beginner quest book has been unlocked, and a tutorial for the low-level administrator has been provided. Zeke is overwhelmed by all the new information, but decides to look at it later. He notices that the system didn't get rid of the dragon's heart, which leads him to believe that his ancestor was feeling generous. The system then asks if he would like to open Terrakin Draker's other dying gift. Returning to the dorms, Zeke opens the system window, revealing his status as a low-rank administrator. His class is Immortal Unique, and he is identified as the one who received the blessing of the ancient dragon and the Hurter of Terrakin Draker. He notes that the incantation skill is locked, but he thinks it can be unlocked once he's stronger. He also has authority and constitution newly added. However, the descriptions are not very helpful. He sees another status window related to Terrakin, which informs him that he has the right to open Terrakin Draker's secure library. To do so, he needs an information update. He is prompted to mark a location on his minimap, and he realizes he needs to go somewhere specific. The minimap shows a location marked Valhalla, which surprises him. It is revealed that individuals other than administrators are unable to view, let alone enter, the area. Even Zeke would have trouble entering Valhalla, but if something related to Terrakin's dying gift is there, he considers adjusting his plans. He decides to keep being part of the family for now. The beginner quest book is activated, and he learns that he can obtain rewards by completing quests, similar to mercenary assignments. A tutorial begins, teleporting him to a new location. He wonders if he's been teleported before, but concludes that this is different, as the entire area has changed. He sees orcs approaching, and the tutorial quest appears, instructing him to defeat the monsters within the given time frame using 2 or more different skills. The reward is points and a system store unlock. Zeke notes that the sudden appearance of orcs and the quest are appropriate, and wonders if the system is trying to create a situation where he can take advantage of it. He activates Swift Steps and Continuous Slash, easily defeating the orcs. He finds that the claymore feels light, which he attributes to the effect of having a divine body. He completes the tutorial quest and returns to his original location. He wonders if it was all an illusion, although it felt very real. He obtains a critical bonus and a time bonus, earning 40 points and access to the shop category. He checks the shop such as Giant's Flesh and Breath of a Flame Giant. Finding rare and expensive relics, he realizes he could make a fortune reselling these items. He tries to sell his training claymore, but it cannot be sold. He can, however, sell an elven dagger for 4 points, which he could sell for 100 gold in an auction. He decides not to use the shop unless he really needs the points. Zeke reflects on the long day and thinks he'll get a good night's sleep. He arrives at the Draker Academy Professor Research Center, where Galleon is surprised to see him, as Zeke managed to find a high-compression mana stone within a day. Galleon confirms that everything is already complete and shows Zeke the finished magic brazier. Zeke is suspicious, and Galleon explains that high-compression mana stones are registered using ancient texts, and by checking the registration number, one can confirm where and when the mana stone was found, as well as the current owner. However, there's no way the mana stone Zeke is holding is registered, as Galleon is the first one to find it. Zeke appreciates Galleon's ability to suspect him rather than blindly believe him, which Galleon attributes to his judgment and skill. Galleon asks if they can leave, and Zeke realizes Galleon knew he would come. Galleon expresses his admiration for Zeke, saying he is too talented to rot in this place. Galleon then activates a device in his workshop, Papner's Breath, and uses a magical ability to transport himself and Zeke to his hideout, where he is able to work on his craft undisturbed. He tells Zeke that he has a lecture to attend and will see him later, thanking him profusely. Galleon is grateful to have seen a completed magic brazier in his lifetime and thanks Zeke, who reminds him of their deal. Galleon is startled and asks for confirmation that Zeke wants him to turn something into a sword. Galleon opens a chest, revealing a dragon's fang, specifically the cursed light dragon behemoth's sharpest fang. Galleon is surprised, as it is Terrican Draker's second dying gift, which included the heart and the fang. Zeke explains that it's a bit complicated, and Galleon trembles with excitement. He is grateful to Zeke for giving him a chance to craft with a dragon's fang, promising to exceed his expectations. Galleon declares that he will create Zeke's blade, even if it costs him his life, as he is Galleon Halberd. Zeke tells him not to do that, as it is a bit too much for him. He watches as Galleon begins his work, wondering what sword he'll make this time, and looks forward to it. Zeke returns to his room in the Platinum Mansion, thinking about how much work it will be to make the sword. He reflects on his duel with Duke, recalling that it has been a week since he received the note to find him again. He expects something to happen sooner or later. Suddenly, Duke appears behind him, startling Zeke, and asks Zeke why he hasn't come to see him. He smirks. Duke intensifies his aura, looking as if he wants to kill Zeke. He denies having any intention of challenging Duke again, but Duke grabs him by the collar, demanding the truth. Zeke is surprised, as Duke throws him out of the room to the balcony. He starts free-falling and understands he would not survive the crash from this height, recovering by reaching the fence suddenly. Duke seizes Zeke's collar, realizing that Duke knows his intentions. Duke asserts that Zeke didn't come, even after reading his message in the treatment room, accusing him of trying to irritate him. Duke gives Zeke 5 seconds to tell the truth, threateningly counting down. Zeke reveals that Duke's true identity is the garden keeper, Dexter, causing Duke to smile. Duke throws Zeke across the room again, acknowledging Zeke's observation. He admits that he was once a Black Knight of Draker, but tells Zeke to apologize for disrespecting a member of the family and an honorable Black Knight. Zeke apologizes, but Duke questions his motives, stating that it's no longer important. Zeke is surprised, as he is aware that one can rise in ranks, but didn't know one could drop. Duke tells him to stop talking about it, and Zeke complies, promising to tell the truth. Zeke admits that he already knew about Duke's identity, and that he accepted him as his official apprentice. Duke is impressed by Zeke's boldness and agrees, accepting him as his apprentice. Zeke is surprised that it was so easy, and decides to accept before Duke changes his mind. He formally declares his intention to become Duke Draker's apprentice, acknowledging the apprentice's vow. Duke calls him a sly snake, which Zeke takes as a compliment. Zeke asks why Duke accepted him as his apprentice, since he was famous for not accepting apprentices, except for Andre, the genius of the century. He wonders if Duke saw potential in him during their duel, and asks him directly. Zeke suggests that it's because he's a genius of the family, but Duke dismisses that idea, saying he would have chosen the girl from the Turin family if that was the case. Duke explains that he liked Zeke's tenacity, as talent isn't the only thing needed to reach the level of a Red or Black Knight. He believes those who are praised as geniuses and have never faced issues fall easily in the face of adversity, which Zeke agrees with. Most geniuses who were projected to reach the level of Red Knights never reach the level of Blue Knights. Duke tells Zeke to stop the chit-chat and to follow him for his first lesson. They arrive at the Western Greenhouse Gymnasium, a place Zeke was unaware of. Zeke wonders what Duke is planning, having been running for 3 hours since Duke called him. Duke tells him to stop, and Zeke asks if he doesn't have to run anymore. Duke asks him what he wants to know, and Zeke responds with nothing much. Duke checks Zeke's hand, as Zeke quickly retreats. And make as large distance as possible from him, Zeke is confused, and Duke questions his action. Zeke realizes that something was off from the start when they fought in the healing room, dueled in the greenhouse, and even after running around the gym for 500 laps, he didn't sense a single drop of aura from Zeke, and he even stopped him from checking his pulse. Duke asks Zeke if he is unable to use aura, shocking him. Zeke is walking through the academy grounds, thinking he saw a bronze statue. Duke, walking behind him, mentions the uproar over the never-before-seen golden light. He asks Zeke why he isn't letting him examine his pulse, stating that it's not suspicion, but simple curiosity. He feels that a Draker should prioritize their own aura, even in this situation. Zeke thinks he's lucky to be facing Duke, as anyone else would be more suspicious of his lack of aura. He admits that he was the first failed awakener in his family, and Duke confirms this. Zeke activates his mana reflection skill, which he knows is proof of his pure-blooded nature, but he still can't use aura. Duke remarks that this truth will cover up Zeke's lies. Zeke apologizes for his earlier actions, worrying that he will be chased out if it's discovered that a Draker cannot use aura. He puts on an act, but Duke sees through it and asks how things are going. Zeke notices Duke's gaze. Duke held malice unfitting of his age. He was still a child. Zeke wonders why he can't sense any aura from him despite him successfully awakening. Duke comments, but then stops, saying that it can be confirmed by examining his pulse. Zeke states that even if it's true that he cannot awaken to aura, he thinks it's because Duke will find a reason to deny it himself. Duke calls Zeke an irregular, which he knows is his conclusion. He explains that if you aren't aware of the concept of classes, it's natural to think that way. Zeke asks what an irregular is, and Duke explains that it's a term used to refer to people with anomalous abilities, such as the ability to use aura and mana together, or an irrational ability like peering into the future. He warns Zeke not to tell anyone about this, as irregulars are not treated very well. Duke reveals that the reason he believes Zeke is an irregular is because he has insane stamina and recovery. Although treating internal wounds takes time, he recovered almost instantly, which must have taken an unspeakable amount of energy. Zeke asks what he thinks that energy is, and Duke suggests that it might be aura, which is constantly consumed in exchange for stamina and regeneration, leaving barely any left to sense. Zeke finds the hypothesis plausible, but wonders if he'll never be able to use aura, and if he won't be able to meet Duke's expectations. Duke tells him not to worry, as his Gale Arts is a special art that doesn't use aura. He explains that it's a special technique developed by a knight who reached great heights, and it's an application or specialization of dragon slaying, so it would be proper to use aura. However, his Gale Arts only uses a trained body. Duke offers to demonstrate, and performs a series of swift movements, creating afterimages. He asks Zeke if he saw, and if it's fine if he follows in his footsteps, and then will be fine if he doesn't show him again. Zeke agrees, and tries to mimic Duke's movements, focusing his gaze. He moves quickly. As he mimics Duke's movements, he notices things he couldn't before. He realizes that the steps were taken as if he were sparring against someone, to attack, to dodge an attack, to close the distance, and to increase it, and each step has a purpose behind it. He is amazed, as he wasn't this good a week ago, wondering what happened during that 1 week. He notes the big difference between their strides, and Duke comments that the difference is like heaven and earth, but that Zeke is perfect. Zeke wonders if this is enough to have the confidence of a black rank, and Duke criticizes his arrogance. Duke grabs Zeke by the throat, warning him not to spread rumors. Zeke jokingly asks what kind of black knight has such a loose tongue, angering Duke. Later, at the Academy dining hall, Zeke enjoys a meal, noting that it has been a month since Duke started training him, and his appetite keeps increasing. He takes a bite of food as Andre approaches, asking if he can spare some time. Zeke agrees, and Andre asks him how he convinced Sir Dexter to train him, getting right to the point. Zeke explains that he hasn't officially become Duke's disciple yet, and suggests that the news might have made Andre anxious. Zeke claims he didn't really do anything, and that Sir Dexter just picked him on his own. Andre is skeptical and asks if Zeke is a pureblood, surprising him. He takes a bite of food, and Andre comments on Zeke's inferiority complex. Andre is taken aback, and Zeke continues, saying that even if Duke's initial interest was due to Zeke's bloodline, he wouldn't pick a disciple for such a simplistic reason. Zeke realizes that the fact that he was able to use that as a foundation to become his disciple is a testament to his own abilities. Andre advises Zeke to put in some effort, instead of wasting time patting his ego. Andre is then seen at the Western Greenhouse Arena, being thrown to the ground by Duke, who asks him what he wants. Andre explains that he came begging, saying he's fine with being a servant if he can stay by Duke's side. Duke agreed to take him in if he could run 300 laps without aura, which is how he ended up like that. Duke compliments Andre's tenacity, surprising him. Andre is exhausted and finds that Zeke has quite the backbone. A commotion is heard as everyone is watching, as today is the day of the patriarch's visit. Horses pull a carriage bearing the Draker family crest. The patriarch is entering, and everyone is ordered to get ready. The carriage is escorted by knights, and a white-haired man departs the carriage. Howard greets the master of the Drakers, and the knights greet him in unison. The clock strikes 1. As the current patriarch of the Drakers, the third transcendent, Arthur Draker, casually greets Howard. Servants compliment his hard work, but he says that it's nothing compared to them. Arthur is introduced as the third transcendent, household Dragonslayer Draker's patriarch. He tells Howard that the sunlight is rather hot and asks to go inside. People are confused, wondering where the patriarch is. Servants then guide him inside. Arthur then speaks to the young Dragonslayers, telling them that they are the hope and future of the Drakers, encouraging them to train hard, as their development will be the Drakers' development. The master of the Drakers is cheered. He is then guided inside. Zeke greets the leader of all knights and the guardian of the name of the Dragonslayer, with all respect. Arthur laughs, saying that no one does their greetings like that anymore. He is offered a rare tea that he likes, and Zeke is surprised that even his food preferences are being reported to him. There may be things that the Emperor doesn't know, but there will never be anything that a Draker does not. This feels very real now. Arthur calls Zeke to him, because he heard that Duke actually took in a disciple. Zeke thinks he is getting straight to the point, and that Duke did him a great favor. Arthur sips his tea, not knowing Zeke's goal, but if he continues to follow Duke's teachings, he will become the strongest man on the continent. He states his desire to become stronger than everyone, so that he can live just as freely, and takes a bite of a pastry. He states his goal. When Zeke falls to one knee, Arthur asks if he means to surpass even him. Zeke is startled. He sees a glimpse of an astral sword, said to give you power over all living things within its radius, the pinnacle of aura usage that only Black Knights can reach. Arthur smiles, and Zeke agrees, saying that it is the most interesting thing he has heard in ages. Zeke now recognizes why Arthur is the patriarch of Drakers, and came to support both the Academy and him, but he doesn't think that will be enough for a real Black Knight. Zeke is shocked, as he thought Duke was impossibly strong, but Arthur is on a whole other level. Arthur presents Zeke with a gift, a black card, a credit card only given to a very select few. Zeke never thought he'd get to see one in person, and having one gives you incredible benefits without limit. Arthur says he will have it under both their names, so he can use it freely, and Zeke thanks him, promising to use it only when necessary. He thinks that Arthur is being obvious in his attempt to keep track of what he is doing, as using a credit card leaves a record. However, if this is his method instead of opting for the Black Martial Squad, it means he doesn't see Zeke as a threat yet. Arthur dismisses him, and Zeke leaves. Arthur takes a sip of tea, and Duke asks why he is angry, as he is suddenly playing father after neglecting Zeke all this time. Arthur states that he has no choice as the head of the household, and accuses Duke of defamation of character. Duke tells him to take him away, stating that he is the only one he can talk to without worries. He then offers Arthur a drink, calling it Dragon Breath, the red one. Duke states that the atmosphere in the continent has been rather strange lately, since he has been cooped up in the academy. But Arthur doesn't know how he is supposed to know that. Duke reminds him that he has eyes and ears all over the place, and insinuates that he already knew the answer to his own question. He adds that the Emperor has gone crazy over the idea of immortality, but dismisses the possibility of it, believing that only magic can make you young. Arthur agrees, but wonders what if the relic he's looking for is something related to the Elder Dragon. Arthur dismisses the possibility of immortality, but wonders if the relic the Emperor is searching for is related to the Elder Dragon. Zeke uses soul manifestation to listen in on their conversation, and it is revealed that the relic might be in the northern continent. Duke takes a sip of his drink, and Arthur confirms that the Order of Black Knights has reported this information, but it's only a matter of time before the Empire finds out. He is reminded of a past emperor who started a war to unite the continent, only stopping after conquering half of it. He thought the emperor had given up on his dream of immortality, but if one of those artifacts could grant it, the continent would be engulfed in flames again. Arthur states that he has agreed to go to the north himself, which surprises Duke. Arthur explains that this is why he met with him, and Duke calls him sly. They clink their glasses together, as Duke compliments him. Zeke, having used soul manifestation for too long, collapses, suffering side effects even after absorbing Bahamut's heart. He realizes that the statue he obtained before regressing was an elder dragon's artifact, the same voice he heard before he died, and the system message he saw after regressing were all connected. He concludes that he stole the artifact that the Emperor would have used to make his wish come true, and that the Emperor even mobilized the hunting dogs unit to chase after him. He realizes that the administrator system that sent him back in time was a function of an elder dragon's artifact, but wonders who made it and why. Duke says it was a nice drink, and that he will make his move immediately, entrusting Zeke to Duke as he departs. He is seen leaving through a door. Arthur is seen from behind walking away. Arthur stands in front of a door, contemplating. While Zeke wonders what the artifact's relation to immortality is, but is interrupted by a noise. Arthur opens the door, looks outside, and concludes that it was nothing. Zeke, carrying a sword, is told not to bother others while training at the Drakers. He apologizes and is informed that a few students have come looking for him. He is surprised that a student would have friends and realizes it must be Reyna. He tells them to come in and recognizes Liam Stone, who asks to be his friend. Zeke remembers that he should not have ignored him last time, and Liam asks to be taken in, offering to become his subordinate. He reveals that he was abandoned by Jaken and that he must go to Valhalla. Zeke realizes that Liam is just like he was in his past life, obsessed with Valhalla. Liam begs to be taken in, but Zeke tells him to go to Turin or Zimmons instead, as he is not a support family. He states that he won't be of any help to him in entering Valhalla, and asks how he is supposed to believe him. He suggests that Liam might be a spy sent by Jaken, and Liam offers to cut off his own tongue. He holds a dagger to his face. He slashes the dagger, leaving a bloody mess on the floor. He promises to prove himself, offering to cut off his foot if he becomes a rifle, and to place his life in Zeke's hands. Zeke looks at Liam. Liam begs to be taken in, reminding him of himself in the past when he wishing to become stronger than anyone else. To a silhouette carrying a longsword. He begs to be taught, and Zeke looks at him as he sits on the floor. Liam continues to beg, and Zeke demonstrates a single strike. He tells Liam that he will take him in if he can withstand it. Liam thanks him, and Zeke asks if he has received adequate treatment. He admits that he thought the strike would be easy, but is surprised by Zeke's power. Liam struggles to breathe, as Zeke unleashes another powerful strike. Liam attempts to block it, the force of the collision sending shockwaves as his attack is rendered useless. He falls to the ground defeated. He mocks Liam, calling him miserable. Liam, having taken a powerful blow from Zeke, struggles to get up. Zeke tells him that he can see his determination, but advises him to give up on Valhalla. Liam, however, is resolute and begs Zeke for another chance. Zeke reflects on Liam's past, noting that he was likely cast aside by Jaken. As a descendant of a distant branch, Liam wouldn't have been able to enter the academy if not for Jaken's influence. Zeke realizes that even an expelled direct descendant like himself wouldn't be odd to be expelled, and that Liam's conceitedness is natural. Even so, Zeke wonders why Liam is clinging to him so desperately. He recalls Liam's past life, where he was expelled from the academy and his order fell to ruin. Despite this, he managed to rise to the level of Red and was known as the Mercenary King. Liam continues to plead with Zeke, who observes his determination. Zeke decides to give Liam a chance, but on one condition. He reminds Liam of his earlier offer to cut off his tongue or his feet. He then grabs Liam's arm and demands that he cut off his right arm. Liam is shocked, as this would essentially mean giving up on becoming a swordsman. Zeke thinks to himself that there's no way Liam would do it if he were in his right mind, and that he has plenty of training to undertake himself. He tells Liam to get out if he can't do it. Zeke watches Liam, wondering why he's so desperate. Liam, however, encourages him not to be too devastated, as even if he doesn't make it into Valhalla, he'll still be able to reach Red. Zeke is taken aback as Liam raises his sword, calling him a crazy bastard. As Liam swings his sword and makes an impact on the ground, Liam is breathing heavily. Zeke asks him if he's lost his mind and what he was planning to do if he went back on his word. Liam states that he might lose something more important to him than his arm, revealing that it's his mother. A few days after being abandoned by Jakin, he heard that his mother had collapsed from a high fever. Although the fever soon broke, red spots appeared all over her body, and she grew weaker by the day. The village healers don't know what the disease is called. When asked why he seeks Valhalla, Liam explains that Valhalla students and their families are offered the greatest medical treatments available on the continent. While Liam describes the symptoms of his mother, noting rose-like red spots, periodic high fevers, and rose-like red spots all over the body. He recalls that 5 years later, the entire central continent will be plagued by the rose disease, which is highly contagious and has a high fatality rate. Countless people will lose their lives, but a radical treatment will be invented, and it will come to an end. Zeke hands Liam the method for producing the medicine to heal his mother's illness, saying that it's not very difficult to make, so the village healers should be able to make it as well. Liam is grateful, but wonders how Zeke knows this when the healers don't even know the name of the disease. Zeke thinks about the genius alchemist brothers, Al and Jeff, who invented a treatment for the disease plaguing the central continent. However, the greedy Alchemists Association took advantage of desperate people's lives to profit, leading the brothers to publicly reveal the production method. It spread across the whole continent until even a warrior like Zeke came to know of it. He simply states that he knows an alchemist. Zeke hands Liam the treatment method, telling him that he has no need to go to Valhalla to be his subordinate. Liam, however, is insistent, stating that his life already belongs to Zeke. He slams his fist on the ground, swearing his lifelong loyalty to him. Zeke is impressed by Liam's resolve, thinking that having the mercenary king from his past life as his subordinate is quite reassuring. He warns Liam that if he lags behind, he will abandon him, and orders him to follow him well. Liam agrees enthusiastically. As they walk through the academy grounds, Zeke asks Liam what's wrong. Liam mentions that Cadet Owen has a proposal for the dean to raise the difficulty of the examinations this semester. The dean is hesitant, as the first-year students are quite skilled, and all the children from the great families are there, including 2 pure-blood awakeners. He thinks that if the examination has the same difficulty as last year, it may end up being a poor assessment. However, he agrees to consider it, much to Owen's satisfaction. The dean chuckles, thinking that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that Owen thinks similarly to his father. He concludes that considering any future problems, it would be best to nip any potential issues in the bud. It is the day of the semester exam, specifically the dungeon exploration. This exam is unique to Draker Academy, requiring groups of 2 to escape a dungeon within a given time. The dungeons vary in difficulty and are randomly assigned. Liam admits to being nervous, and Zeke advises him that a suitable amount of tension will guard against both mistakes and arrogance. Reyna, Jakin, and another student are seen preparing for the exam. Zeke and Liam are called up next, but an examiner intercepts them, telling them to go a different way. As Zeke notices something strange, he tells them to hurry up. Zeke smirks, and they proceed as ordered. Zeke explains that although the difficulty varies from dungeon to dungeon, they are still exam-use dungeons under the management of the Drakers, so there isn't much danger. Each group is given a timer that activates upon entry, and all are given 96 hours. Basic battle abilities are also graded, and extra points can be earned by bringing the heads of monsters. However, the most important thing is leaving the dungeon within the time limit, or else they will receive a failing grade. Zeke instructs Liam to set up camp and prepare their meal. He assures Liam that he will be fine even if he doesn't sleep for around 4 days. He offers to wake Liam if anything happens. They set up camp near a lit fire. It has been 16 hours since they entered the dungeon, and Zeke has been training since the day of the exam, meaning he has been awake for 40 hours now. He realizes that infinite stamina only recovers physical fatigue, not mental fatigue. He decides to reduce as many risk factors as possible within a dungeon, where you never know what to expect. He notices a bell and decides to switch with Liam once he wakes up. The bell is shown close up as Zeke closes his eyes. A bell is heard ringing in the distance, along with the sound of a flag. He has a nightmare of someone being stabbed through the chest. He sees a person lying on the ground bleeding. Zeke wakes up from the nightmare, sitting by the campfire. He covers his face with his hand, thinking he heard a bell. He looks towards the entrance of the dungeon. He uses mana to extinguish the fire and wakes up Liam, telling him that it's an enemy. He instructs Liam to check out the situation first, while he doesn't light the fire. Liam agrees. Zeke thinks that using dragon eyes during an exam that will take 4 days is too risky, so adjusting his eyes to the darkness would be better. He smells the scent of sulfur, which is often given off by monsters that hunt in packs, such as the rank 3 monster, the Hellhound. He remembers that Reyna had hunted an orc during the semester exam in his past life, but he didn't think there would be hellhounds here as well. He notices something odd. Even the leader of a hellhound pack would weigh at most several hundred kilograms, but judging from the echoes, this one sounds like it weighs several tons. He wonders if it is a mutant. He grits his teeth in anticipation, as he and Liam jump and flip backwards away from an unseen threat, and asks Liam if he's alright. He angrily clenches his sword, wondering what the Zimmons are planning this time. A hellhound is revealed. However, his head is detached as a monster holds it. He and Liam engage in a fierce battle with the monster, which is revealed to be a troll. Trolls are rank 1 monsters that are dangerous enough that they can casually munch on hellhounds and orcs. Their blood is a raw material for healing medicine, and they possess incredible regenerative powers. Zeke is surprised, and Liam offers to be a decoy so that Zeke can flee. Zeke tells him not to say something so depressing, as he would never abandon a subordinate. He tells Liam to believe not in him, but in his own efforts, as he is not weak. He offers to support Liam however he likes. Liam thanks him, and they continue their battle against the troll. Zeke notes that Liam is quite good, having managed to wound the troll despite its tough skin, by aiming precisely at its joints. He realizes that Liam has been studying monsters in his spare time. As something approaches Liam from behind, but Zeke defended him, cutting it, which appears to be the troll's clap, and apologizes to Zeke. Zeke reassures him that it's fine, as this isn't bad for his first real battle. He praises Liam's decision to aim for the comparatively soft joints, but warns him that he overextended himself, and that trolls are able to immediately heal small cuts. He advises him to keep this in mind, as they cannot keep up with the troll's regeneration with proper attacks. The troll swings its massive hand down at them, and Zeke states that this seems like too much for him, so he'll finish things up. The troll is defeated, with a notification that they have earned 30 karma points. Zeke tells Liam to pick up the troll's body, as they should earn plenty of extra points with it. He is surprised when another notification appears, announcing a sudden quest to hunt 100 monsters of 10 different species in the dungeon within 72 hours. The quest is named 2 Birds, 1 Stone, and the reward is double the karma points earned during the quest, as well as 2 random boxes. He is surprised to see that they have already hunted 2 species and 14 monsters, with 71 hours, 59 minutes, and 52 seconds remaining. Zeke notes that there are 79 hours until the exam ends, and while hunting 100 monsters isn't a problem, having to hunt 10 different species is. He considers that although the dungeon may be large, an exam-use dungeon would normally only have 4 different species. However, since this is a trap prepared by the Zimmons, there should be 10 if he looks thoroughly. He decides that doing the quest on top of escaping is something he has to do. Liam returns with the head collection use bag provided to them alongside a timer. Although it is far inferior to a subspace pocket, it is enough to carry drops. Zeke tells Liam to not fall behind, and they continue hunting monsters. They collect a leech and battle a giant centipede-like monster. After more hunting, Liam asks Zeke how it's going, and if he has gotten used to real combat. Zeke replies that it's normal to take a while to get used to it. He stares intently, noting that they have 50 minutes and 54 seconds remaining, and that they have hunted 9 species and 99 monsters. Even after killing a leech the size of a finger, he is still at 9 species, and concludes that the Zimons are useless, as they should have prepared just one more species. Suddenly, he is alerted to something approaching, as an unseen enemy makes an impact on the ground. Zeke orders Liam to drop the bag, and is surprised by his foe. The enemy cuts through the ground, and Zeke is sent flying, leaving a trail of blood in its wake. Liam is shocked, and as he is sent flying, he assures Zeke that it is just the monster's blood. Zeke tells Liam to just watch this time, as it will be hard for him to pay attention to him. He identifies the creature as a dungeon worm, an incredibly dangerous monster that requires 8 well-trained purple knights to subjugate. He curses the Zimons for their thorough preparation. Liam attacks the dungeon worm, but is visibly shaken. He struggles to regain his composure and carefully retrieves the bag. Zeke continues to battle. The worm, noting that even a blue knight would want to avoid encountering one in a place like this, because of how it consumes the earth to move. He realizes that if he takes too long to subjugate it, the ground will collapse, and he will be buried alive. The worm continues its relentless attack, and Zeke manages to dodge it. He grins and unleashes a powerful blow on the worm, vowing to cut it in half. He destroys the ground beneath the worm, causing it to fall. He then unleashes a series of attacks on the worm, forcing it into a defensive position. It whips its tail at him, but he continues his assault, eventually piercing it. The worm's pressure weakens, and Zeke continues his attack, causing the worm to fall to the ground. Liam reveals that he applied an anesthetic to his sword, the main ingredient of which is belladonna. While it would simply weaken a human's senses, it is a deadly poison to a worm. In this urgent situation, he recalled that worms are incompatible with belladonna and adapted by using the anesthetic as a substitute. Zeke praises Liam's judgment and adaptability. He instructs Liam to stab it with that sword again once he gives the signal, realizing that taking him was the right choice after all. He strikes the worm and orders Liam to attack. Liam plunges his sword into the worm, causing it to shriek in pain. The worm is finally defeated, and Zeke activates Soul Manifestation. He unleashes a final attack, causing the worm to explode in a shower of gore. A notification appears, informing them that they have completed the sudden quest, and that their karma points will be doubled as a reward. They have also been provided with 2 random boxes. Their current karma points are 780. Cadets who have escaped the dungeon gather for scoring. The instructor begins the evaluation, announcing a base score of 30 points for escaping. One group is shown to have obtained 20 goblins, 2 hobgoblins, and 1 orc, for a total score of 180 points. They are praised for almost reaching Abel's record score of 200, with comments that pure bloods are on another level. Another student, Renia, is congratulated for exceeding the passing score by 130 points. Owen is then evaluated, receiving a total score of 120 points for exceeding the passing score by 70 points. He is thanked for his efforts. Owen comments that Rena won't be arrogant forever. Owen smirks, thinking that if things go wrong, they can just deal with him like Zeke. Suddenly, a familiar voice is talking, and Owen recognizes his voice. He is shocked to see Zeke there, as the other students comment on the presence of a dungeon worm. It is revealed that Zeke and Liam took it down together. The worm's corpse is shown, and Owen is surprised to see Zeke. Zeke greets him casually, much to Owen's annoyance. He mocks Owen's lack of a poker face, saying that he looks much better this way. As Zeke walks away, Owen vows to make him pay for looking down on him. Owen's group is mocked by other cadets. Andre asks Zeke if his little power struggle is over and begins the evaluation. He states that he won't let anything slide as long as he's the evaluator, and asks if Zeke lost his head collection bag. The other cadets mock them, but Zeke smiles, stating that he was ambushed by the dungeon WRM and lost all the heads he had gathered over 3 days. He couldn't afford to fail, so he took the dungeon WIRM's head instead. Andre is the only one who would meticulously inspect the flesh and leather scraps stuck in its teeth. He puts on a glove and begins to identify the monsters they defeated: gremlins, goblins, hobgoblins, hellhounds, orcs, and trolls. The other cadets are shocked to hear that there were trolls, as, judging by the amount of blood, there were dozens of them. Andre decides to acknowledge only one of each identified monster was defeated. And although trolls and dungeon WRMS aren't part of the scoring criteria, he will calculate them as 90 and 180 points respectively, based on records stating they are equal to 3 or 6 orcs. Zeke and Liam receive a total score of 368, passing the exam. The other cadets are shocked, wondering if such a score is even possible. A student furiously claims that it's a scam, as the only corpse there is the dungeon WIRMs. He insists that the dungeon WIRM alone is worth 180 points, but is ignored. He is reminded to think carefully, as running into a dungeon worm or a troll could be fatal. Liam assures Owen that they survived, and Zeke asks if it was really that much. The other cadets make a fuss, but Zeke just looks at them calmly. Zeke reflects on how he did something noticeable again, and that the Zimmons went as far as manipulating the test dungeon just to get rid of him. He wonders if Owen was acting alone, but concludes that even he wouldn't dare tamper with the Academy's test. He speculates that it might be the head of the Zimmons family himself, and that he's being watched more than he thought. He decides to play along and observe for now. He spots Reyna, who approaches him. She tells him that he won this time, and he watches her leave. He wonders what she meant by that. In the training hall, Zeke looks at the information for the Dragonkin skill Gluttony, which requires 50 points to unlock. He had ignored it because it seemed useless, but now, spending 50 points is nothing. He activates the skill, and the skill description changes. In Gluttony mode, anything can be digested and converted into energy, and consuming a monster with a bloodline ability allows absorption of its power. Zeke is excited, realizing he should have activated this before the test. He decides to try energy conversion and absorbs the dungeon warden's heart. He is surprised, as the heart disappears into a black void, and feels his energy being replenished. His headache eases as if he took a short nap, relieving some brain fatigue. He feels his whole body being revitalized, including his mental fatigue, physical fatigue, and even his ether hole. He realizes that the skill is worth the 50 points, as he can reduce the risks of all his skills. With Gluttony relieving brain fatigue and infinite stamina negating physical fatigue, he can train for 24 hours without eating or sleeping. Liam interrupts his thoughts, and Decker reminds Zeke not to be disturbed while training. Liam apologizes, saying it's an important message that he had to deliver quickly. Zeke is informed that his sword has been completed, and he rushes to see Gel Lion. He recalls that the sword he received from Gel Lion in his past life was forged from mithril and pure iron, the legendary sword Graham. He wonders if his new sword will look similar to Graham, even though he provided a dragon's fang as material this time. He is shocked when he sees the sword,